You'll have to excuse me. I'm fighting a bit of a sinus infection, and we're kind of uncertain who's going to emerge the victor at this point. Um, my name is Matt Miller. I'm from Tremont, Illinois. I'm a full-time elder and administrator at Northfield Christian Fellowship in Tremont. We're a church of about 500 men, women, and children. We're in a rural farming community of about 2,500 people, and we're about 20 minutes south of Peoria, so that'll help kind of with context. I'm here to share about one of our ministries called the Share Closet and how it impacts the community and reaches out with the gospel of Christ. It's actually a very big ministry. It's huge with the potential for more growth. But to fully appreciate the success of it, we kind of got to step back a little bit and look at the history. So a group of Northfield leaders, elders, and ministers and others went to a strategic ministry planning conference in Lafayette, Indiana. And they asked a question at that conference that has stuck with me to this day. I ask myself this quite often. It's, if your church were to disappear today, would your community miss it? And I had to say that when we went to that conference, I would have said no. They probably wouldn't have. We were great at coming together and doing church, but as far as outreach and influencing our community, we maybe lacked a bit on that. If the community has no use for their church, for your church, then they probably don't have a use for the gospel. So that really hit home to me. We took all we learned back to Tremont and we presented to the congregation, encouraged people to come to us with ministry ideas. So we kind of focused our ministry efforts then. That takes us up to about 2012 when we Kelly Stuber, who would be Brother Dwayne Stuber's daughter-in-law, came to us with an idea called Community Share Day. In the beginning, it was a free garage sale format. It happened one weekend per year. There were a lot of volunteers. Basically, on Wednesday and Thursday, people would drop off their donations. We would organize it, and then Friday and Saturday morning, people would come and take the stuff, and then at noon, we'd load it all in trucks and haul it to Peoria Rescue Ministries and donate it there. And then we'd clean up the church and set up for Sunday. In the beginning, there really wasn't a ministry goal other than to get people stuff that they might be able to use. It took a huge amount of volunteers, and we could really only use the building from Wednesday to Saturday because of church. This is a view of the setup. Keep in mind that this room is a 75 by 90 room, and that isn't all the stuff. The foyers were full of clothes as well. There were some great advantages to the ministry in the beginning. The event brought people to the church for help, a lot of people. It was a limited, it didn't take up a ton of bandwidth all year long. There was plenty of square footage in the church, and we had a limited donation retention time, so it was only there for a few days and then it was gone. Some of the not so positives were it took a huge amount of coordination for that one weekend. The format encouraged hoarding and consumerism. We saw a lot of that. It was difficult to gauge how much donation was going to come in and how much we'd have to deal with. Lots of junk came in. Quality control was really hard. People just unloaded on us. And it was intense getting set up for Sunday morning again in just a few hour window. In the following years, we tried some outreach tactics. We offered free biblical counseling. We had some greeters, but again, it was only 1.5 days a year, so it was difficult to manage that as an effective outreach. So we decided to change the look of the ministry. We decided to make it a year-round event. We gave it a new name. We call it the Community Share Closet. We gave it a new location that was upstairs in one of our long closets of the church. It was about the same length as the all-purpose room, but kind of narrow. And we also used a Sunday school room. We gave it a new intake process. That was our intake room back then. We did sorting and pricing in that room, and then we added pricing because we through books like What Every Believer Should Know About Charity and Toxic Charity, we learned that that even if it's a nominal fee, it instills dignity in people when they have to when they're a part of that process. When you're getting a handout, it feels like a handout, but when you're contributing, it doesn't. So we added pricing, but the prices were cheap, like 25 cents for most things, a few bucks for things like furniture. There were some new benefits to the program. There's the closet. You can see part of it anyway. And we transformed a large Sunday school room for the bigger portions. the there were some benefits. The church staff had access to the items during the week, so when people would come to the church during the week for help, we could just run upstairs and get them clothes or whatever they needed. Um, the ministry grew simply because of availability. It was around year round, so people had access to it year round. It was still at the church. It brought people to church, and we had better quality control. There was less junk. And in less than a year, we went from being open 10 hours a month with 65 people coming in to 125 people coming in and 34 hours open a month. Now, you're going to hear me reference some financial stuff and other numbers, just like the guys earlier. It's not because we're focusing on the numbers, but the numbers are one way to track success. And we use our finances to further the gospel. And so those numbers matter. They directly correlate to the amount of ministry we're able to do. So I'll explain that in a bit. Excuse me. In March of 2016, like I explained, 3 people per open hour. We had $600 in gross income. As with every change, there's some not so positives. We had square footage issues. We didn't have enough space, even though we had more space. Thank you. We had some accessibility issues. The elevator at our church is as far away from the front door as you can possibly get it. And the share closet ministry is at the front of the church. So they'd have to bring all the stuff in the church, go the full length of the church, up the elevator, and back to the front of the church, and vice versa. So we were having to haul all that stuff you saw, had to go upstairs or up an elevator. The actual closet wasn't very wheelchair friendly. There was some janky floor stuff going on there. We had very limited hours, and donation drop off was difficult. In 2015, it was decided we would build new. We'd pursue a new location, and we started looking at available properties, and we decided to build. And Andy read this verse earlier in his last session. Along with the new building would be a higher emphasis on outreach. We wanted to heed or obey Matthew 25:35, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. That verse, one thing we didn't quite realize was the amount of the outreach would change us as a church. When you bring in people that aren't like you, your church changes over time. And if you bring, say, double your population church in, all of a sudden you don't look like the church you did. So what that really did for Northfield was it honed us in on the basics, on the core of the gospel. We had to accommodate, we didn't accommodate anything in core doctrine, but we had to accommodate in other areas, traditions and other things that we valued. But if we were going to be an effective outreach, we had to loosen up a little bit. We wanted to minister to the whole person, both physically and spiritually. People are much less likely to hear the gospel if they're cold and hungry or unhoused. We reached out to the Tremont Community Food Pantry, and we partnered with them. There are 2 people from each church in town on that board, and they were located at the time in 3 little closets in the Methodist church basement. So along with the food pantry, we had other goals: to provide essential items and clothing and household items at discounted cost, provide financial assistance to those who were unable to purchase essential items, and we wanted to partner with NCF's, Tremont's counseling ministry. So we bought a piece of property. I'm going to slide behind because I can't do 2 things at once. That piece of property right there with the little building in front, the white building, and the little 10-foot wide barbershop building, that's all on the same property. And since we've acquired the property on the left with the little Swiss looking thing there on the side. But we bought that property, and what you can't see, there are 4 more large buildings in the back. And in a matter of days, it went from which was a considerable eyesore, to a blank lot, which was that. I'll save you all the building picture process, but in November, I think in November of 2016, we opened the doors, and that's Dana Stuber on the left. That's Brother Ken Stuber's daughter-in-law. And then she's standing next to our first paid employee on the right, Barb Scott. And Barb was our first store manager. And here's a picture of the front of the store now. That's the store. Again, we demolished the building next to it. Um, since 2016, it's exploded in growth. Uh, an unseen side benefit to investing in town like this was the entire Main Street now in town has been transformed. When you take out the junk, then people get more excited about their buildings and they change their buildings. Um, on the most basic level, here's how the share closet works. We use very low priced items to draw people into the doors, and then we strive to build a relationship with them. You've heard that this morning quite a bit. We figure out their physical and spiritual needs, and then when they're ready, we share the gospel with them. That's the 30,000 foot view. We have a mission statement. It's the share closet exists to share the hope of Christ by meeting the needs of home, body, and soul. And so our motto is turning stuff into relationships that matter to God. We put people first, always. Covering cost is important, but more important is where people will spend eternity. And so remember when I was talking about tracking numbers, for us, an important number is the amount of people available to receive ministry. And we track that by how many people are coming through our doors, how many cash register transactions. That's the important number in our head. So remember in 2016, we had 3 people per open hour. That came out to about $1,200, 1,200 people per year. Last year we had 26 people per open hour, and that figures out to a little more than 30,000 people a year. And so that's been our growth. It's a stunning number. We had about $267,000 in gross income, and now it costs a lot to run a ministry like this, but that we can do a lot of ministry with that money. And it's important we look at these numbers because in that light. Now remember, this is a town of 2,500 people. We've had growth of 20% financially, and people coming to the doors every year since we've opened, and it looks like we're on track to do that again this year. And to me, it's just a stunning number to go in just 7, 8 years from 1,200 people to 30,000. So I explained the 30,000 foot view, but the structure of the ministry I've got to explain before we go further. The share closet has 2 arms. It has the home and body side, and they deal with the stuff. As of now, the home and body side has 1 full-time manager and 3 part-time staff and about 100 volunteers. And because of the size of that side of the ministry and the amount of donations coming in, there is always a tension there. There's always a struggle to keep the home and body side in check because it's overwhelming, to say the least. The store is the engine. This is the way we see it. The store is the engine that provides the funding for the soul side of the ministry. So without it, none of this works. We think of it like a train engine towing all the train cars. The store is the engine. All the ministry are the cars behind it. The more engines we put in front of it, the more cars we can put behind it. So we covered some of these numbers already, but seeing the Lord provide for this ministry has been one of my greatest joys. We have the 20% growth year after year. We get additional income now from selling clothes that we can't sell on the floor. We sell by the pound to a recycler, and that the stuff we can't sell is about 85,000 pounds a year. And so again, that's just one more part of the engine. We're just taking that money and dumping it right back into the ministry. And those numbers are important because it means we have a large number of people to minister to. We have the ability to minister to them, and it gives us adequate funding. That's the home and body side. So we use the home and body side to fund the left arm, which is the soul ministry. On the soul side, we have 1 full-time manager and 10 or so volunteer greeters. So our greeters are all believers. They all have received some training on how to present the gospel, on relationship building. They offer prayer support for anybody that wants it. Their only responsibility in the store is to mill around and talk to people and to build relationship. We specifically instruct them not to help with the stuff and focus on building relationships. They pray for people. They look for gospel opportunities. This is one of dozens of examples. I'll read it because it's kind of small, and it's really small on my page too. I'm going to read it up there. This was a real Facebook post from a gal, a shopper at Share Closet. Let me tell you, I'm not a super religious person, but today I stopped at the Share Closet consignment store just to look around and I had the most unbelievable experience. As soon as I walked in, this lady named Sue and I made eye contact. A few hours later, she came up to me saying she was drawn to me and would like to talk. If anyone knows me, I have had a ton on my plate lately. When I told her my situation, she cried and asked if she could pray for me. She prayed for quite a while. We stood there together, and by the end, I was crying too. It was just so beautiful that someone took time to ask me how I was doing, what I was feeling. It's been a long time. I'm still periodically crying thinking about it. Thank you, Share Closet and Sue. And then Sue saw that on Facebook. She said, I just saw this, Callie. I've been praying for you and hoping that I will see you again Thursday morning. God has plans for you. She said, thank you, Sue. You'll see me again soon. And Sue said, I'll be watching for you. That's just one example. That one's a public example. They're not all public. So our soul ministry is turning relationships into stuff, turning stuff into relationships that matter to God. So in 2024, on our soul side of the ministry, 175 people were personally prayed over in the store, in the moment. We handed out 500 pieces of medical equipment. We have another side shoot of this is we offer free medical equipment to people who need it. They can come get it. We'll give it back if you're done with it. If we don't see it, we don't care. But we take in wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, canes, shower chairs, knee scooters, lift chairs, hospital beds, and then we loan them out for free. And the greeters help the people get the stuff. So that somebody comes to a greeter and says, I'm looking for a cane for my mom or a walker for my dad. The greeters have an instant in with that. We found that people who are in need of medical equipment are usually in a tender spot in life and usually need support and relationship. They're going through health issues. Sometimes financial struggles come along with that as well. And they're looking for free medical equipment. So it doesn't take a lot of skill or training or effort to get somebody to open up. Oh, you need a wheelchair. What's going on in your life? Well, my wife fell and broke her hip and she can't get around, and it just almost immediately they just pour out what's on their heart. It's really unique and really neat to see. They get prayed over by a greeter in that moment. They get the free medical equipment. Their name goes on a prayer board in the back room, and all of our volunteers pray for them at the start of every shift. Every first shift as our team gathers to pray before the start of each business day. Many of you, one of our other programs is a LifeWise program. Many of you have probably heard of that. Can you raise your hand if you've heard of that? Okay, so I believe it started in Ohio. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but basically, it's a nationwide program. Kids can leave school during the school day during a free period, about an hour, and get spiritual training as part of their school day. So they hear the gospel during the school day. A couple who lives right behind the Share Closet donated this building to us out of the blue. We had no idea it was coming, and like in 2 days, we had the deed to a building sitting in. We didn't know what we were going to do with it, and then LifeWise came up, and so it's less than a block from the Share Closet and less than a block from the school, so directly between the two. And it's amazing how God provides, because no other building in the area would have been available for that. That would have been the only one. So there's the kids that walk over from the school to our building for that hour, and then they get the the spiritual training. These are a few pics from day one, the first day. We feed them lunch there, and then they go back to the school. So our soul manager is on the LifeWise board and has a hand in the decision-making processes that go on there. We just finished renovations with LifeWise. They're on the second floor, and the food pantry is going to be on the lower floor of that building. We just moved them in. So this has all happened in the past month. LifeWise had 75 kids signed up. There's programs around our area that have been going for a year, and they've got 12 kids signed up. So it's just been stunning to see. We do senior meals. A local senior meals program shut down during COVID, and the organization that put it on did not start it back up. And so Share Closet stepped in and used some of our funding. And this time we put a spiritual focus on it. It's not just meals. So our soul manager manages that. These take place in the community center, which is directly across the street from the Share Closet. Again, you could throw a rock at both these buildings and hit them from Share Closet. But last year we served 4,500 meals. And we also do closet cash. We print our own money, much like the federal government. We give it out to folks in need, and they can spend it in our store like a gift certificate. Unlike the federal government, we strive to use it wisely and manage it better. But every ministry I mentioned has a high emphasis on presenting the gospel through relationship. So we had 28,000 cash register transactions. So that'd be well over 35,000 people came through the doors. So I'm not suggesting share closets model for everybody. I am saying, though, that relationships matter. My personal belief is that a relationship and an understanding of where that person is at in their life has to come before they'll be ready to hear the gospel. If you could just kind of step back out of your body for a minute, out of your Christian life, out of your Christian world, and look at the situation from an unbeliever standpoint. Um, excuse me. Some guy 2,000 years ago was nailed on a cross. What? We have to. They sacrificed him. Wait, we need to eat his flesh and drink his blood. I'm going to get together in a room full of people I don't know and sing songs I've never heard out loud. That is not how that out there works. That's how this in here works, and it's a beautiful story. I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying that it takes a little bit to get a person to the point where the Holy Spirit has to work on them and give them an understanding of that, and that happens through relationship. So church is a little bit weird if you're not from it or from that background. But with somebody living it out beside you, it becomes a beautiful lifeline. So somewhere in the last 15 years or so, we had a shift in church strategy. Not just we, I think nationwide, the evangelical movement. Historically, before the 2000s, we looked at churches as attractional, as we would put on events and draw people to the church so they could hear the gospel. Concerts, we heard a lot of these, and there's nothing wrong. I'm not knocking these at all. I'm gonna tie them together actually, but concerts, church picnic events, church events, door-to-door canvassing, VBS, and then we share the gospel at that event. But there's lacking some relationship there. There's sometimes, at least in Tremont, we have some large events we still do. There's not a lot of follow-up with those. It's difficult to follow up on. And so now I believe the focus has shifted to relationship. So we go outside, build relationship, build trust, and then like through our life groups and through share closet in Tremont, when the time is right and God's prepped their heart, then, and the gospel becomes real to them, then church attendance follows. So we've seen it over and over again. We become the ministers that are going out. Now, I'm not going to say one way is better than the other. Each one has a time and a place. We still do VBS. We still do the men's deer feed, like large events. We still host an occasional concert. We do a ladies' tea. So we still do both these things. We do attractional events. We heard this in the first session, and Todd Moore, one of our missionaries, does church planting all over the planet. He's a church planting consultant, basically. But if each one of your members, Todd challenged us with this, and he used 2 years, not 1 year. If each one of you in your church focused on getting to know one person with the intent of one unbeliever with the intent of bringing them to Christ in 2 years, your church would double in size. So that means Tremont 2 years from now could be 800 people instead of 400. And 2 years from that, it would be 1,600 people. And 2 years from that, it'd be 3,200 people. The growth could be fantastically huge if we see it that way. So I haven't seen, I'm not saying there isn't one, I haven't seen a single conversion come out of the men's deer feed. There's 500 or 600 guys that come every year. They hear a very intense gospel message, very pointed. I'm not saying we haven't planted seeds. I'm not saying there hasn't been a conversion. I'm just saying I'm unaware of one. And that takes dozens of guys weeks to prep for and to set up and all that stuff. I think if we put that same amount of hours and effort into relationship building, I think we might see more result from that. So in the share closet, we see relational model produce dozens of conversions that result in maturing and long-lasting faith. So if you were a missionary in a foreign land, and I told you that next year I'm going to trot 29,000 people. Let's be real. Let's say that a third of those are let's say there's some duplicates in there. Let's knock that number down to 10,000. Let's say I'm going to trot out 10,000 people in front of you next year, reach them with the gospel. That's what the share clause is dealing with right now. That's what we're trying to handle and manage. And it's been stunning to see the Lord work. We're seeing tens of thousands of people a year trying to figure out the most effective way to reach them with the gospel of Christ. And it's not just the customers that are getting ministered to. We have 100 volunteers, and a lot of those are widows or widowers. They're coming for the relationship. They don't want to be alone. And so they pray for each other. They go out with each other. It's just a beautiful ministry. We have some that come 3 or 4 days a week, and the share closet gives them an opportunity for relationship. I really love this ministry. We have volunteers from every church in town, from neighboring towns, from different denominations. The share closet exists to meet the hope of Christ, to share the hope of Christ by meeting the needs of home, body, and soul. We're literally turning relationships into stuff that matter. I'm struggling. We're turning stuff into relationships that matter to God. So that's all I have today. Thank you.